tertiary monitor. I still have not broken down and bought the big monitor like you got. But one of my monitors, these monitors are like 8 years old. One of them's starting to flicker and act a little weird. Yeah, maybe that's... Yes'm.
You're frozen now.
I was just sitting very still.
I wish that was the case.
No.
And you're frozen in Skype. Oh.
Oh.
Once again, don't touch anything.
I want that.
All right. So, I wonder if it's when you Skyped me. That's probably what it was. No Skyping me.
Oh, okay.
I have the link. I just can't find Slack now. There's stupid Slack.
Stupid Slack. Boom, shakalaka.
Do I need to tweet a Rooney, I assume?
I assume we will all tweet a Rooney. Take that. One of these. A couple of those. And all right, so there's that. We're live?
We are live.
Oh goodness.
So I've put the words in. I put the link in Slack. I just tweeted the link.
You tweeted the links.
Tweeted the links. Did I? I'm going to add another thing to our shameless promotion, really. I mean, this time of year, apparently we are just in hardcore.
Mm-hmm. Ah.
October 24th.
Bloop. You've been busy with all of your things with the things.
I am a busy thing with the things kind of guy, you know? Which is all great because I don't have enough time to do any actual, work. Oh, so much.
Boom. That did not work the way that I was expecting it to. Somehow in the screenshot that I tweeted out, it's only you. That's just some crap.
No, it's so pretty.
No, not at all. Don't encourage yourself. It's not how that's supposed to work. It's not how any of this works.
Thought self-encouragement was supported on this podcast.
Only when I do it.
I made me smaller.
You made you smaller?
Yeah, shrunk my head a little bit.
No comment.
That is that. Where? I don't care about any of that.
Yeah, I think we're good. There's no intro. Okay, now there's an intro.
15 minutes ago, we barely had any notes. Now we got way more than we'll ever cover.
How often does this happen?
About every Wednesday.
Yeah, and the thing is, it encourages bad behavior. It encourages our regular tendency to procrastinate. Do you watch many TED Talks?
No.
There's a really funny one about procrastination, and the guy's got cartoons. It's hysterical, and what's he called? There's a monkey. Everybody loves monkeys.
Johnny Chimpo?
Not Johnny Chimpo, but everybody loves him too. I bet it's that one. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. I think it's the instant gratification monkey. Uh-huh. Yep. It's a very funny. Yep.
It's a nice picture of me.
No.
Looking away.
So I would Skype it to you, but I know that would make your house burn down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's you're pixelating again.
The instant gratification monkey.
Oh, should not do that. In case you're wondering if my email just popped up over top of the window and was streamed, it was.
I was doing a thing a couple of days ago with somebody, and the screen sharing software that we were using would only let you do screens, like whole screens, or maybe it was the whole desktop. And I'm like, ugh. Not that I, have any illegal things going on anywhere, but you just never know. Just can never tell.
I'm with you. Yeah. So, and I used to, a lot of times, like for customer stuff, I preferred to share my screen because we'd switch between like SQL and Power Apps and that type of thing.
Sure.
But with Mega Monitor, I can't. So I've had to go back to only sharing Windows. And I do not like that. I prefer to share.
Yep. So I have Hyper-V running everywhere. And if I know I got something like that going on, I will join the meeting inside of the virtual machine.
Yeah.
That helps. But for this one, I was not prepared.
Yeah. And so in the SharePoint days, I did the Hyper-V, the VMs for customers. But with Power Apps, I do your amazing Google trick. And
I need to blog that.
I'm going to make a video about it one day.
Oh. Maybe I should do that before you do it.
Probably.
Just so you can't do it.
I'll still make a video.
That's adorable that you think that will stop me, but I am still making the video.
I mean, would you like to talk about my successful videos? I mean, I've got the numbers right here in front of me.
I would not like to talk about that. I didn't have a lot for breakfast, so it would all just be bile and just dry heaving, and so that's just not pleasant for anybody.
Sure, 21,069 subscribers.
See, there's that thing that I said I did. You're doing that thing I said I didn't want to do.
I'm just trying to make sure I was talking about the right thing. And if we weren't live, I would give you the other number, which is like way higher. It's even higher than last time I rubbed it in your nose. So
my nose can't take any more rubbing. You've rubbed it down to a nub.
Okay, what was I trying to do before I started making fun of you?
I can't think back that far. I was surprised that picture from the Chiefs game was 10 years ago. I'm not sure when I thought that was, but that was 10 years ago. And now look at my Chiefs, 4-0. We are well on our way to doing that thing where we plateau at like week 8 and then lose the rest of the games the rest of the season. So it's a long, glorious Chiefs tradition.
Well, at least your expectations are the right place. You could be like the Cleveland Browns, who for a moment thought that they were like, had fixed all their problems.
So you listen to Freakonomics, don't you?
I do.
Are you caught up?
No, I am not.
So they start a series on sports, which is very interesting. They spend an entire episode, and of course this stuff is produced months ahead of time, recorded months ahead of time. They do this whole episode, an entire Freakonomic episode on the 49ers and about how they were great, and then they were horrible, and how they're great again because I got Jimmy Garoppolo, and that was the thing that fixed it all. And I listened to that on Thursday, and on Sunday, he got hurt and got taken out. I'm like, boy, that is some rotten timing for the 49ers. That is just terrible.
Yeah, that's like the Madden curse, right? We got a Freakonomics curse.
Boy, that was terrible. And they got Kyle Shanahan on there, and he's like, well, it's not all Jimmy, it's a thing. And then 3 days later, Jimmy's in the dirt.
Yeah, apparently it was over. I never saw the play, but apparently it was over like 1 yard that was completely meaningless. So,
well, and he didn't. So is that the one where he didn't slide? Where he tried to? I can't remember. There was some quarterback, and I mean, I will mock quarterbacks endlessly for sliding. I think it's such a wuss move, but I understand why they do it. I mean, it's a wuss move with some utility. And
honestly, I mean, so. I've had a hard time with football the last few weeks, right? The
last few years, let's be honest.
Well, no, I mean, I'm talking about the rules this year of like the quarterback.
The rules too. You've been complaining about the flag football thing for like 5 years now.
Okay, well this year it's gotten to a new extreme. Like I'm about ready to turn it off.
You are not.
I am. I've got
real
close. I watch a lot less football than I used to. But
well, that's because you got kids and soccer and work.
No, like I turn off the Sunday and Monday night games after the kids are in bed. I'm like, I'd rather watch New Girl.
Did you watch? You watched Monday though. Watched my Chiefs.
I did. They did a good job of keeping me in, and I knew you'd want to talk about it. So I.
And it was funny when you texted me about Mahomes. Like I was in the middle. Jill and I were discussing that exact thing, and I was in the middle of talking when my phone went off, and I looked down at my watch, and I'm like, he's been talking to the microwave. He's got the room bugged.
I did.
Yeah.
But so I mean, to your sliding point though, right? They've got all these rules. You can't tackle the guys.
Yep.
I get it. I understand it. I don't know.
You don't like it, but you understand it.
Yes. Yeah. But I feel like it would be more fair to the defense if, for example, when the quarterback is scrambling, right? Because you can't lay him out.
Nope. Well, I thought you could outside of the tackle box or something.
Yeah, but like if he's like running down the sidelines, and if he even leans towards the sideline and you lay him out, right? It's a penalty. So you have to like go over there and like softly push him out.
Ask him what his intentions are.
Yeah, but then like a Cam Newton, you go over to try to gently push him out, and he trucks you over and he goes to the end zone, right? Or like Aaron Rodgers pretended last year to run out of bounds and then juked around because they couldn't hit him. They had to pull up.
Yep.
So I think that the rules should be changed that, if the quarterback, even when he's outside the pocket and scrambling, right? We don't want him to get hurt. We don't want it to happen with Garoppolo. They should be like two-hand touch, right? They should literally be, nope, we do not have to tackle you because we can't. We have to go two-hand touch you. You have to slide. I think that type of stuff, the outside the pocket rules for the quarterbacks need to change to make it more fair for the defense.
It's certainly tough for the defense. And so even Monday night, there was one where Von Miller came in, was getting ready to wrap Mahomes up, and then like threw his arms back and just kind of, he's like, ah. I mean, and that's the thing. The rules change every year. They've changed every year since you and I were 4 years old. So, I mean, there's just always that constant thing. But I agree that they get tweaked every year, and there's probably some tweaks that can be made to help the defenses adapt a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I get the quarterback stuff. I just want to see it apply everywhere. Let's protect the guys because poor San Francisco is a great example. But I can show you 7 clips of, Aaron Rodgers or Roethlisberger or those type of guys, trucking a dude. So you got to. Yeah.
And it depends on the quarterback. Yeah, you got a quarterback like Cam Newton who is a freight train. He can get away with some of that stuff.
And God help you. I'm still waiting for the day that somebody tackles Tom Brady too hard and the sniper just pops out over the out of the press box. Poof! The guy's dead right on spot. It's gonna happen.
You think Kraft's got that guy on retainer somewhere?
I do. I honestly, every time I see Brady get tackled, even gently, I'm like, oh, where's the sniper? Is this the time?
Oh. Yeah, Mark, the inhumane tackling. So that's, in all honesty, if my son wanted to play football, I don't know where I'd go with that.
We won't. We already told Grant he can't. I
like the sport. I don't necessarily like what it can do.
No, my children are going to make money off of what's on top of their shoulders. Football does not help what is on top of their shoulders in any way.
No.
So just because Grant's been people try to get Grant to play. Right? He played flag football. They let him do that. He had a bunch of success. They're like, hey, come join this, select football. I'm like, no, it's not happening.
My daddy says no.
Grant's like, come on. I'm like, no. So he's gotten over it. He understands. It's just a hard no. He will not play football.
Yeah, I think it is the witching hour.
Oh, and right as you say that, you start pixelating. So just
know
when you go back and watch this on YouTube that you go from fine to frozen to pixelated for really no reason. So
let's be honest, I'm always fine. Are we ready to go, Lori? Are you ready? Lori has a hard stop at 11. We will honor that.
I probably have a consulting engagement at 11, if we're being honest.
You probably have one right now, honestly. If we're going to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah. What do you do?
Lori's ready. All right. Do I have all my lights on? Oh, I don't have that light on. Let me turn the other.
Oh, amateur hour, folks.
Oh,
Amateur hour.
geez. Look at the prima donna. And then I got the thing. Oh, well, there we go. With the thing, with the Wemo. A Wemo, a Wemo. Sorry, just one second. I should just have the thing turn on every time.
Yeah, let's just have automatic.
There we go.
Wake me up before I go.
Okay, now we're doing it. Lori, start the clock, counting down. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast number 404, recorded live Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018. Good morning, Shane.
Good morning, Todd. I would just like to point out, we'll get it out of the way now. Everyone knows we're going to make really corny 404 not found jokes. So
there's some very obvious jokes that will have to be beaten into the ground today. Yep.
So I apologize now.
Yep. Chat room, go ahead as you think of your favorite 404 jokes and throw them in the chat room for show title suggestions, and we'll do our best to wedge them in if we can find a place to do that. Other show notes, I think. Man, so we are only, 7 days after we recorded the last podcast since we recorded 403. And I believe that it has been out for like 4 of those 7 days. Like, I think I got it done 2 days after. Yeah. I'm kind of a big deal here. I'm really kicking butt. So congratulations to me.
Yeah, kudos to you. Kudos. I want to mock you for it, but good job.
And the other thing, something that has been bothering Shane for months, call it 6 months at least, maybe more. Some of you noticed several months ago, some of our eagle-eyed viewers who are watching the YouTube version or the video version have noticed that over my right-hand shoulder, there's been a piece of paper with an X on it. The whole reason for that was me, since I started working with the SysKit folks here a few months ago, I wanted to put a SysKit logo over my shoulder because I wanted, Shane's got his stuff and I'm going to have some stuff. And it's, I want this back wall to look like a NASCAR car as it goes by. And so I had that piece of paper up there just kind of to see how it sized over my shoulder and all that. And I just had a big white piece of paper with an X on it, never really making the SysKit logo for that. Last week I did the webinar for the SysKit folks. It was great. We laughed, we cried. And I thought it would be good of me to do that. So before I went on the air, I printed out an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with the SysKit logo. So now I got that. And now Shane is still not happy. Now the corner over here was flapping up a little, so I did some spot fixing on that. Still not enough for Mr. Young. Still unhappy.
I mean, I have to give you, it looks a lot better since you did the tape job that I asked. I'd also like to point out that the video is currently frozen when you're pointing at SysKit. So what a sponsor moment. You're going to be pointing at them for the next 30 seconds to 2 minutes. So
that is awesome. I think my machine's going to get a cleansing reboot after this podcast. Probably should have done it beforehand.
I think we both should have done that. I think in hindsight, yes.
Yep. All right. So what are our topics for this week? You've got the first one on the list here.
So I want to give a shout out to one of our longtime listeners, one of our favorite people, and my certified flow genius, Fausto. He helped me with a flow that did some crazy shenanigans using OneNote. So basically, I have a financial...
Really?
Yeah.
Go. I've often wanted to automate with OneNote, so I'm all ears.
Yeah. Well, so what he figured out, or I guess I'll back up to what the customer wanted. So the customer is a financial services company. You're not frozen anymore. Congratulations.
Oh, sorry. Should I get my finger out of my nose then? Appreciate the subtle hint on that.
That's what I was trying to cover you there. But so what they do is they do notes on different tickers, right? So if Microsoft releases something that is relevant to their traders, they want to capture that information and they want to store it in OneNote. They're trying to move to like an Office 365 centric for everything.
Can't love OneNote too much.
Yeah, right. And so we've already written them an app that all their trades and stuff from the trading desk or from the client reps go into that to make their way to the trading desk. That's pretty cool. But so this one, he wants it so that you can kick off a flow. It will go into the notebook and find a section coordinated with that ticker. So it'll look to see if MSFT is in the list anywhere. If it is, great. Then take the note, make a new page in the notebook inside that section, and dump in the data.
Okay.
If the section is not there, then what we're going to do is we're going to create the section, then create the page, and create the note. Pretty straightforward process, it sounds like, but it's a really complicated flow, it turns out.
Yeah, they released, a couple of years ago, some APIs for interacting with OneNote through Office 365, not the standalone stuff. And I looked at that briefly, and holy crap, just walking through the different levels of objects. Like, I would love to have some kind of flow or something where when I'm reading a news article or something I want to talk about in the podcast, there's something that I can do that will shoot it into the show notes for the next podcast.
Well, thanks to Fausto, I can send you the exact code to do that.
Well, there we go. So for me, then it was one line farther. So it would be, go to the notebooks tab, then find the page for whatever the next podcast is, and then find the section of that page, because our page has different sections, and then add it somewhere in there.
I don't know if you can get that far down the rabbit hole. And one of the things you'll have to figure out.
Talk to your man Fausto.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably listening, but. One of the tough parts, back to you calling out that it's all API driven, is you're exactly right. So we do everything in JSON, right? So you have to go and get it, and then you get these terrible GUIDs because they're like, hey, the SharePoint guys used all the GUIDs. We want to try and do the same thing.
Yeah,
so,
it's like there's a prize for the person who uses the last GUID at the end. Like whoever does it, they get a big prize.
Yeah. So anyway, kudos to him. I want to get him a shout out because he went above and beyond anything a friend should do to be like, here you go. Here's a Word document, Shane, that is dummy proof. Even you can follow along how this works.
Well, thank you, Fausto, making something Shane proof. I've been struggling with that for 12 years, 13 years. I can understand the amount of effort that takes. So I appreciate that.
All right. I guess I have number 2 also.
So that's a fun one. So to talk about that. And then I've got a thing about that too.
Well, yeah, I'm guessing you're going to have all the smarts about this. But so I don't know where I was. I was probably reading the old tweeter, and somebody posted a link to this TED Talk, and it is the difference between the UK, Great Britain, and England. And I'm not going to lie to anyone. I'm a dumb American who is really bad at geography and
hates foreign everything, like hates anything outside of the bounds of the U.S.
Oh, that's probably fair. But so I watched this about 3 or 4 times. I still couldn't answer the questions if you asked me, here live, hint, hint. But it was really neat because it did kind of talk about how the nuances between the UK, the Great Britain, and England, and basically how the different islands and things that the different little countries they still have some form of control over. And it's a complicated question. I was amazed at how many nooks and crannies there were to the answer to that question.
Yep, I probably erroneously think that I could explain it and understand it. But many years ago, I quiz myself on it. So there's a guy that writes for Ars Technica, a guy named Peter Bright. I don't know if you've met Peter. Okay. So he and I are friends, and he is from the UK and England and the British Isles. And he and I were chatting about it one time, and I sat down and I explained to him how I thought it broke down, and then he corrected me a little bit. And then a couple of weeks later, I ran it past him again to see if I retained it. And so at one point in the past, a legitimate Brit who is fairly well educated gave me the thumbs up that I had an idea what it was.
Well, kudos to you. I do not. And to me, that's almost as complicated. I'm going to kind of steal my own thunder here. But so the kids, we were arguing about, is a thumb a finger? Turns out that is not a straightforward question either. No. Right. And I think what it really boils down to is finger is a made up word. So, whatever definition of the word finger you want to use, you can include thumb or not include thumb. So I don't want to, steal anyone else's excitement there, but we went and did some research on it, and it's like, yes, the answer is yes or no. It's whatever you want to be.
It's funny, those things. Certainly, I grew up in kind of a rural area long before the internet and all that. You get this idea that the way you learn things is just the way that it is. So if you learned that the thumb was not a finger, nobody on earth is going to convince you otherwise because everybody feels the same way. One of my kids was doing a thing at school on the continents and the oceans. And so, memorizing the 7 continents, and she had it all down. I'm like, now I'm going to blow your mind. Not everybody in the world thinks there's 7 continents. She's like, what? I'm like, oh, yeah. You start talking to some of those foreigners, they got this idea 5 continents. And she's like, no way. I'm like, yeah, I was probably 30 when I learned that. So you're 20 years ahead of me.
Oh, yeah. You make up words, you can make them be whatever you want, I guess.
Yep. So I think the way that it works.
Uh-oh.
England is a country. And England is a country on an island. It is part of a federation that is the United Kingdom that includes Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. And then there are British Isles, which includes that island and the island of Ireland, which also contains another sovereign country, Ireland, or the Republic of Ireland. And Great Britain, I believe, is just the island on the east, I believe. How'd I do?
I told you not to ask me. I've watched it 3 times, and without like a bullet points here, I got nothing for you.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Because you didn't bring up the other ones, right? Because there's still portions of the United Kingdom, I believe, or is it Great Britain? One of those two has like some islands that are like all over the world.
Yeah, because they used to, the sun never set on the British Empire. Yeah, that's funny stuff. Okay, so we have a couple celebrities in the chat room. Both of them are named John, which is going to be very confusing. But John Levesque is in the chat room and John Liu both. And we've got another flow topic. So let's hit that before either of those two get smart and leave the chat room.
What number is flow?
C.
Oh, that's what I was.
Oh, okay.
They were the flow topic. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And it's funny. So we were all excited. We talked about flow first. And I swear to God, 7 seconds after we stopped talking about flow, John shows up. And by John, I mean both of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this really shows you the power we have, right? We mentioned flow. John Levesque comes in from the Microsoft side. Like, hey, what are these?
I'm here. Who's talking about flow? What's going on? Yeah.
And then John Liu shows up like, all right, you guys need an adult in the room. You need somebody who actually understands how to use flow. So
and John Liu is in Australia, so it might be Saturday afternoon there. Like, I don't even know when it is in Australia right now.
Yeah, I'm in some flow groups, chats with John, and I just assume that John Liu never sleeps. I mean, it'll be like 5 o'clock in the morning there, and he'll be like, oh, yeah, Shane, let me help you with this thing real quick. And he'll like crank out some code, and I'm like, John, go to bed. I appreciate it. I love you. Kisses, mwah, but go to bed.
Yeah, and I just want to go trying to make myself look cool, riding their coattails. I knew John Liu before John Liu was cool. Before Flow, I've known John for like 5 or 6 years. He's been in the chat room. I've been to Australia and hung out with him. He's been to the U.S. We've hung out at like MVP summit, stuff like that.
Well,
so John and I go
on your nose.
Way back. Far cooler than you.
All right, what are we supposed to be talking about? What's next?
Ignite. And so we did a bad job. You have some Ignite stuff. I have not done a good job categorizing all of the amazing things that were announced at Ignite last week.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I think you all know, right? For Petri.com, I write a monthly article. What's everything you need to know about SharePoint for the month, and everything you need to know about Office 365 for the month.
Yep.
And so I tried to write those like literally, as Ignite was closing down, and I just had to start the articles out with, look, there's no chance this is everything because so much happened. I don't understand. I mean, I understand Microsoft, tries to use that as their platform to get out a bunch of messages.
Yeah.
But it was too many, right? Too much, too awesome, cool stuff was announced all at once that you just couldn't consume it all, or at least I can't. And I don't know. I don't know even where to begin. We talk about this a lot, right? How do you keep up in Office 365 with the pace of change? But how do you keep up with Ignite when the pace of change is like quadrupled for a week?
I agree with that completely. And I think Microsoft, and they're not the only ones that do this, but we're picking on Microsoft now, so we'll pick on Microsoft. The other thing is they compound that by announcing things that you can't actually get today.
Yes.
So there are enough things that you can actually do today that we would be satisfied, but they're trying to hit this cadence of, Ignites at the end of September. So everybody announce everything and then stuff gets behind. So you get all this, this avalanche of announcements. Some of it you can do today. Some of it you can't do until December or whatever. And it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. And to your point, right? I kind of liked the idea, like when Ignite, like especially like keynotes and stuff were the more forward-facing ones, right? So it wasn't any announcements of things they'd previously done, because they pre-announced it. It was like, here's our vision for nano computing or something, right? Things that are kind of legitimately out there. So then that way, you can kind of focus in the keynote. All right, this is kind of my vision of where we're headed. Instead of these keynotes where it's like, here's 17 features, 6 of them work today, 12 of them will work next week, and 3 of them will work in 2 years.
Yeah, and then there's 4 or 5 that will never come because for whatever reason they just didn't work out.
Yeah. Like was there, I mean, once again, I'm behind, but was there any of the HoloLens stuff that we saw at SharePoint conference? I don't think they tried to do, the augmented reality SharePoint document library on stage again anyway, but.
I didn't see anything. I also didn't last year. The keynote at Ignite was all about the quantum computing. I didn't hear much about that this year, but again, I wasn't really looking, so who knows?
So yeah, I struggled. Things I did pull out of it. What was one of the good ones? So one of the things I did pull out was they announced Office 2019, which actually did a good job of confusing me. So I had to stop and think about it.
Yes, I was thoroughly confused as well.
Right. And so one of the things I think that a lot of us, it's easy to forget, right? Your version of Office today, is most likely either you have Office 2016, the standalone clients, right? That whole little package. Yep. Or you have Office 365, which we think of as SharePoint, Power Apps, Flow, and all that stuff. But Office 365 is also a client set of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint.
Yep. And that's the one that's called Click to Run, correct?
Yes. Right? So you have these 2 different versions of the Office clients, which I always thought were the same, just different ways of getting there. But it turns out that if you have the Office 365 Click to Run clients, you have different features than people who have the Office 2016 standalone clients. And
yep.
My mind and my brain just got really, really sad when I tried to understand it.
Yeah, mine too. And the first time I found that was there were ways to add things, and they would be like, well, if you're running the Click to Run version of Word or Excel, it's here. And yeah, like, I don't even know what that means. And I think, so now I've got, like any self-respecting computer nerd, I've got about 7 or 8 PCs that I use on a daily basis. And I try to keep them separate. Some are running the standalones, some are running the Click to Run. So I just have both platforms to look at when looking at things like autosave and things like that.
Yeah. Well,
it is confusing.
Yeah. And so my primary driver here, I'm running Office 365, I'm running Office 2016 standalone. So I guess I have the rights to the Click to Run. So I guess I need to switch to that so I get the cooler, newer features. There you go. That's an example of being overwhelmed from Ignite content and not getting more than 2 seconds to think through what they even said.
Yeah. So we should probably get that all put together and maybe do that next week or something. But I think really the important thing to talk about is letter E.
Oh, all right. So those of you, a little background, right? Those of you that have ever been to one of Todd and I's sessions, which we've had the privilege of doing all over the world for millions and millions of people, is we always try to suck up to the audience. And to suck up to the audience, we play a fascinating game called Heads or Tails. We've literally played Heads or Tails with about 3,000 people one time.
Yes, thousands of people at one time, yes.
And it's a very simple, put your hand on your head if you think we're going to flip a head. Put a hand on your tail if you think we're going to flip a tail. Then we do an inappropriate HR joke. And then I flip head about 70% of the time.
Yep.
And Todd can't catch as of the last time.
I lose it in the lights. It's very bright up there.
It was hilarious. Anyway, so Todd was in a charity event this last weekend, right? Because he's very hoity-toity on the weekends. He puts on his, his 3-piece tuxedo with the top hat and the cane, and he goes to
monocle,
charity events.
yep.
Oh, yes, the monocle, right? You and Bruce Wayne are at the same events, I assume.
Maybe I am Bruce Wayne. Have you ever seen?
And so, Todd, what happened at this charity event? Not that children got money or anything like that. No one cares about the charity portion.
Let's not focus on the minutia. So one of the things that they did was they wanted to play this game. They had a bunch of stuff. And they called it forks or spoons. So you could, for $20, you could buy a fork and a spoon, and then they would play heads or tails. And the spoon was heads, the fork was tails. Same thing. So now we've got a room of like 300 people. I don't know how many were playing, half, something like that. And so Jill knows the backstory of you and I playing heads or tails, and she's heard many hysterical anecdotes about the shenanigans that we do. And so we just buy one as the couple, and she gives it to me. She's like, this is your thing. Now, you and I played heads or tails forever. And so I get why she thought I was the expert, but I was like, man, I'm going to fail. And this is going to suck because she thinks I'm the expert. I'm going to do this and I'm going to drop the spoon. I'm going to hold them both up. I'm going to embarrass myself. But I'm like, all right, I get it. I'm the heads or tails guy. So the MC, who is a friend of mine, which is kind of funny, explaining the rules to everybody. And he had a practice run. So he's like, oh, here's the deal. We're going to do practice run. This one doesn't count. hold up your spoon if you think it's going to be a head, hold up your fork if you think it's going to be a tail. And he throws it and it's a heads. And I'm like, I know how this is going to go. I know the guy flipping the coin because I have him as a partner. It's going to be heads. So, and then you and I have talked, I want to get on a rabbit hole here, but there's legitimately ways to predict how heads or tails are going to go. We've talked about all that. And so I'm like, okay, we got it. And it went, I don't know, 7 or 8 rounds, but I kept I was like, all right, this guy's going to predominantly throw heads. So I would do a couple heads. I'm like, all right, probably time for a tail. So I'd stick the fork up. It would be tails. And one thing that they didn't do that you and I always do is what happens when you get down to 2 people. And so it got down to 2 people, me and one other guy. And I got this guy pegged, the flipper, I got him pegged as a heads guy. And so I'm like, okay, I'm doing heads. So I hold up my spoon and the other guy's like, nah, I want heads. So, and they'd never talked about how that works. And I'm like, well, you can switch to tails because if we both have heads, this doesn't work. And he's like, no, I'm not going to switch. And the he's never done this before. He's like, no, I think you can both be the same. I'm like, well, then how do you decide who wins? He's like, well, if you both have it right, you stay standing. And if you both don't, then I guess we flip again. And I'm like, rookie, this guy. But I'm like, all right, well, I'm sticking with heads. Flips the coin, it's heads. We're both still in. And I'm like, do you see how this isn't going to work now? So my buddy's like, well, all right, why don't you guys come up front? And I'm going up to the front of the stage because we're in this big banquet room. I only have my spoon. Like I left my fork on the table. I am all in on heads. I feel so strongly about heads. So we walk up there, the guy and I shake our hand, shake each other's hands with each other. Good luck. The guy flips the coin. I'm proudly holding my spoon up and it's heads. So the very first time I ever play heads or tails as a participant, not as a dealer or whatever, I win. So I win, the adoration of everybody in the room, their love and respect for me was palpable. And since I knew the MC, as soon as he called heads, I run over, I give him a big hug, and I give him a big kiss on the cheek, and it was a good time. So I won, a couple $100 worth of gift certificates for restaurants in town and things like that.
But the children won, right? That was the key.
I don't know. I forget that. I did a victory lap around the room, and I was giving people high fives, holding my spoon up.
Yeah, and you said, right. One of the things that people don't appreciate is that we run into this occasionally, people using our game, right? At this point, Todd and I have patented heads or tails.
Yes.
And they don't ever do it well, right? They miss the obvious jokes. They don't poke fun. They don't pick a favorite in the crowd.
No. And they didn't have somebody look at the coin to there were so many things they could have done, and I didn't give them that feedback. I've been that guy, Shane and I have talked about this. We saw a couple of dueling piano folks, my wife and I, and they did the heads or tails thing, and I went up afterwards and critiqued their performance.
I think it's valuable feedback. We should have a consulting service. It's headsor-tails-consulting-services.com.
I'm like, you guys missed some very obvious jokes. You're going to want to write this down. Here's what you should have done. And so I did take a picture. So I texted Shane immediately and told him about my good fortune. And I did take a picture of the lucky spoon. So I'm putting that in the chat room now. So yeah, it was it was a good time.
And I'm guessing no one really cares, right? Because if you watch the chat room, speaking of that, right, they're writing PowerShell. John Liu went and wrote a flow.
Yep.
I think we might have bored them with this fascinating
Well, and we've done
story.
That. So you and I have done that. We've done a PowerShell session, and before we did that, we did heads or tails, and we used PowerShell. Heads, comma, tails, get random, all that. Yep, we've done that before.
Yeah, it's. Jeff Hicks has now written a function to do it 100 times and then group it so he can tally it. The nerd level that we have invoked over here, right? They don't care about the story, but we planted a seed. Now they're like, yeah.
Yep. And Jeff, your suggestion is going to come back in a later thing. So so anyway, that was great fun. And it was very, very fun to be on the other end of it. And I won, and I've got the lucky spoon to prove it. So,
yeah. All right. So next up on our list of topics, Jeff did it 1,000 times, and his machine threw more heads than tails. Good job, machine. Okay, stop. Focus, Shane. Focus! All right. So small business security was another topic, right? I don't have a good segue out of, Todd and Bruce Wayne to small business security here. But, one of the contracts we had to sign this week for Power Apps 911, the customer was super vigilant on security, right? They had a CISO, they had 100 pages of legalese of all the security requirements we needed to be a contractor and the processes and all the things they could do. And that was a pain, but we got through all of it. But as part of it, Nicola and I, right, as you guys all know, Nicola is actually the CEO of Power Apps 911 because she's the smart one, the good-looking one, and
the adult supervision,
and the adult supervision. But we had a chat about small business security, and it's a tough conversation, right? We have 3 full-time employees, we've got 3 or 4 contractors at this point, but we run it here out of my basement, right? As you can tell, I'm in my basement. Woo!
Yeah, I can confirm that. I've been in that room.
And it's very, it's a tough topic, right? I mean, it's easy to say things like, okay, yep, we got firewalls, we install PC updates, but physical security, what's our policy on that? Well, I don't know. It's my house. My kids, my neighbor's kids are running around here. I mean, how do you quantify that? Password policies. So, should we force password changes? It's a pain in my butt. I don't want to change my password. Should we have multi-factor passwords? There's all of these things. And so her and I had a pretty tough conversation about kind of all the different things. And I tried to go look up like the NIST or NIST, NIST, right? They have a, some small business security guidelines, but I'm like, well, this doesn't apply. This doesn't apply. And a big part of it is, for me, my business, my personal life, they're one and the same, right? I'm literally I work, I'm always working. I don't know. So it was a tough conversation. And it sounds like you kind of had some different thoughts on maybe how I'm doing it all wrong. So I can't wait to hear this.
Well, I think there's no one right answer. And so that was kind of thing. And I have a much smaller business than you, but I think you're, throughout the entire time I've known you, your business has been your life. So there's for the longest time, and I think to this day, I don't think I've ever had a personal email address for you. It's always been your business email address. Whereas I mostly keep those apart. And I keep those apart for a couple of reasons. In case, for instance, you come to work someday and get laid off and don't know that your work address isn't going to work anymore. That's a bad reason to use your work address. Not that that's happened to anybody on this podcast a couple of times. So I have always got that separated, and I've always been much different. I don't want to say better about separating, but not necessarily better at practice. So I think it comes down to a lot of those things as to, where, what your level of commitment is. And so I have a little less commitment than you do. Yeah. So I don't do as much of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, right? It's like we need to do security training, right? So, I mean, I'm going to make a PowerPoint and I'm going to walk, Nicola and Jeff, right? The 2 full-time employees through it and be like, don't click on spam, don't click on these links. Don't click on pop-ups. Don't give anyone your password. Don't write your right, and I have a hard time with that type of stuff. Cause I'm like, you wouldn't be here if you didn't know these things, right? I don't hire frontline. I don't hire non-technical people. I only hire people who know as much about that type of stuff as they need to or not. But it's good to have a written policy that says, yes, everyone's had this security training. I really struggled with the conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's all true, but I also think that stuff changes. So you could know all there is to know or have a reasonable level of security now, but a year from now, not keep up on some crazy security thing. Like I've seen videos of how hackers have exploited and gotten past multi-factor authentication. I don't think most people know that that's a possibility, but it is. I've seen it happen. So that all changes over time. But I always love to see you step outside your boundaries and do things you don't like to do and grow as a person.
Boo.
So speaking of security.
Yes.
Should we talk about our friends at AppRiver?
Because they provide a extra layer of security on top of Office 365 for spam filtering and all those fun things, virus protections. Yeah, I think they're a great example of what you're looking for, right? Because that was a big part of our security response was we don't have any on-premises servers anymore. We only have in the cloud, and it's all Office 365.
Right.
So anything I can do to make that platform better and more secure, which Microsoft does a really great job to begin with, but taking it to that next level by partnering with someone like AppRiver as my reseller of Office 365, I think it's one more checkbox, right? You've summed it up well. Someone screw it up now, but right, security is about just making yourself not the easiest target, right? You're just
making yourself a harder target. Yep.
Yeah, right. We're just trying to move ourselves up the stack. So they're like, oh, that guy has no passwords. Let's hack him before we hack this guy with multi-factor. So, and I think AppRiver just helps you move up that stack a little bit.
Yeah, so when you're talking about security, there are kind of two types of attacks. Some of them are attacks of opportunity, and that's the making yourself a hard target. And I would guess that's the bulk of them. Yes, if somebody is bound and determined to hack Shane Young, that is not an attack of opportunity. That is a targeted attack, and they will likely find a way depending on all of that. But that's not the bulk of them. And so it's like that whole thing, when anybody says, well, I would change my password, but then somebody is just going to figure it out, blah, blah, blah. My first question to them is, do you lock your doors? Because you've all seen somebody kick a damn door down. Like, it can be overridden. So why do you even bother locking your door? I mean, I've kicked multiple doors down, and it's way easier than I thought it would ever be. So why do I even lock my door? Why? Because it's the crime of opportunity. Because if somebody's just going by wiggling doorknobs, my door is going to be locked, and they're not going to want to kick the door frame down. They're going to keep moving. So doing a lot of these things just makes you a harder target, makes you move on, makes the bad guys move on to somebody else. So valid stuff.
I get it. It's a great one. And that reminds me, one of the things I don't have in the show notes, but when I was trying to read, all of the Office 360 or all the Ignite announcements at once, one of the things that they've introduced is some new macro virus protections using some AI stuff. So they're apparently going to wrap, excuse me, they're going to wrap all of the macros and the scripts that you can run inside of the Office clients inside of a new shell to hopefully stop, all these different exploits that people are doing with macros and things.
Yeah.
Once again, type of thing that I don't think about. I don't want to think about. If I'm just on the Office 365 click to run client, one day I'll just show up and I'll be better protected. And I didn't do anything, and that's a win in my book.
Yep. So if you want to hear more about AppRiver, and again, this is for Office 365 resellers, so consultants like you and I that also do the Office 365 thing, you can go to toddclint.com/AppRiver. That will bounce you over to their page and let you know all the great things that AppRiver has to offer you. And it really does add just another level of protection and auditing and awareness to the great things that Microsoft's already doing. And I highly recommend it. I have to circle back in the chat room. John Levesque is calling me out. He doesn't think that I'm tough enough to kick down a door. He wants video proof. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't have any doors I don't like. But the first time that I did it was at 2 or 3 houses ago, and I'd locked myself out. We've all watched movies of people kicking doors down, and I'm like, I wonder how easy that is. And I was like, just kind of going for a test run. I kind of like put my foot against the door and just kind of pressed a little bit because I didn't want to like break a hip or anything. Gave it a little nudge, and like the door jamb just shattered and the door flew open. I'm like, well, that was way easier than it should have been. Oh, so I've done it.
Yeah.
And like I was telling John in the chat room, watching me kick a door down is just a damn masculine sight to behold. I mean, it is just all that it is, man, right there. Just me overpowering all of that.
Yeah. You show up with your baby blue V-neck striped shirt you're currently wearing. you put down your latte. You hand someone your man purse, and then you go, "Hey, yeah."
Show me the door, which needs kicking open.
Yeah, and I agree. It's I don't want to break a hip. I think that has got to be the show title because let's just face it, that we've reached the age we have to start thinking about things like not breaking a hip.
We are not young men anymore.
All right, what do you got for H?
So H is a fun one. Man, H is one of those things where I just think back and say, being a consultant is so much fun, and things like H is one of those things. So I think she's in the chat room, Lynn Dye, a longtime friend of the show. She's been watching this podcast almost as long as Lori has, almost as long as I have. Met her in person a bunch of times. Lynn is salt of the earth. She's more of like end usery things, not so much IT pro. Love Lynn to death. So she gets a hold of me. I think she sends me an email Sunday night or Monday morning early. And she has a client, a customer, and I think I'm telling the story right. And if not, it's artistic flair. It doesn't matter. But they had a customer who was syncing a very large document library in Office 365. And that customer went in on the file system and deleted everything, not understanding the syncing and all of that. And so for several days, the OneDrive sync client was syncing deleted files. I don't want to skip to the end, but when they finally caught it, there were 94,000 files that had been deleted over this 3-day period.
Nice.
Yeah, so they killed the client. They realized. So Lynn came to me and she's like, hey, I know that there's recycle bins and all this kind of stuff. What is the easiest way, say, to restore 94,000 files without, clicking a screen and bringing over all that? And so that was one of those things, which just, I mean, the story is great. I'll be telling the story for years, but the actual figuring out of how to do it is is a lot of fun. So my first thought was the files restore feature that OneDrive has, but this wasn't in OneDrive. This was in a SharePoint document library, and I didn't see a way to do it in there. So then my next weapon of choice is PowerShell, because PowerShell's greatest strength is just looping through things and doing the same thing over and over again. And so what I ended up doing was writing a line of PowerShell, actually 2 lines of PowerShell, that goes out using the PNP PowerShell, uses the get PNP recycle bin items, and then filters for the exact things that we want. Because this is a big tenant, there's a lot of people in there. So there's a lot of things that were in the recycle bin that were legitimately things that didn't need to be restored. So I was able to say, okay, I want only the items that were deleted by this person, that were in this path and in this time frame. So I got that into a collection. And then I took that collection and I just piped it right into restore PNP recycle bin item and just started churning through. Problem solved. Except the problem wasn't completely solved. There were a couple of hiccups, being that it just doesn't happen very fast. And we were talking about 94,000 files. So right now, as I'm watching, you can't really see, but I am running that on 4 different machines right now. It's been running for a couple of days. We're a little over halfway done. And it's running on multiple machines because the bottleneck isn't Office 365 or the servers on the back end. It's the client side. It's the PNP. It's walking through this list of tens of thousands of items. So I have 4 PowerShell windows open on 4 different machines. And Jeff Hicks in the chat room was talking about for his heads and tails, he was doing, 1,1,000, the range thing in PowerShell. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up going out, getting this collection full of items that were deleted from this place by this person over this time frame, 90-some thousand items. And then on each of the 4 machines saying, okay, you get 1 through 10,000. Restore all the items. You get 10,001 through 20,000. You restore all those items. And so that was able to use that PowerShell range feature to break that down so they weren't trampling over top of each other, because the time penalty for trying to restore an item that's already been restored is pretty great. I mean, it takes 3 or 4 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but now multiply it by 90,000. So if you get 2 of these instances that are trying to restore the same set of files at the same time, you've wasted whatever. And it, so it's churning through. It's not fast. It took several days to delete all these files. It's going to take a couple of days to bring them all back. But they caught it quick enough so the recycle bin didn't get emptied. So I will maybe blog this at some point just so people can see how to use it, because there were some mechanics things. Restore recycle bin item didn't take the pipeline input the way I wanted. It didn't give me the output back that I wanted. So I had to put it in a for each loop and walk through some stuff. But it was a lot of fun. And it's running right now, and I'm just kind of watching all these files show up.
Sitting there in your NOC, right, your Network Operations Center, just watching the screen and the updates. Like, yeah, I made that happen.
Yep, and Jeff Hicks is in the chat room, and I would be remiss if I didn't run this particular piece of PowerShell past him. But he has always been very supportive of you and I's stupid PowerShell blunders. And so had I not been able to knock this out in a couple of minutes like I did, I would have come crawling to Jeff, and he would have mocked me and then helped me. And so I want to give him a shout out.
I always like when Jeff mocks you.
He's become quite good at it.
Yeah, but no, this reminds me of a story that kind of ties up that and our previous section. So one of the people I work with, our dear friend from Boston that we had lunch with.
I remember him.
So they use a third-party help desk software called Freshdesk, which we were pretty happy with. But turns out that some people from a foreign country decided to hack his instance of Freshdesk for no reason other than they created 54,000 tickets. They just attacked it. They broke through, and they just created 54,000 fake tickets to mess up our system. So back to your whole attacking for not maliciously going after this company, but just because they found an instance and let me see if my script will really mess them up. And now he's fighting with the company to get them to delete all the bogus tickets. They're like, it's not our problem. Like, your stuff got hacked. It kind of is. So it's a very awkward exchange that's going on right now. Yeah,
and it's very tough, and with stuff's in the cloud. So speaking of Jeff Hicks, I have a couple of PowerShell things as we're winding down.
Yep.
Jeff, I promised I would give him some love on this one, the only kind of love that Jeff will let me give him. He recently published a PS calendar module that lets you display calendars and stuff in PowerShell. And you can go to his blog, jdhitsolutions.com. He has also been kind enough to put it out in the PowerShell gallery. So if you don't want to read all the words and all that kind of stuff, you can just go out to your favorite PowerShell prompt in admin mode and type install module PS calendar, and you can get text calendars in PowerShell. He put a Windows Foundation or Windows Platform Foundation thing, so you can get the nice UI things out there. He's got like a million ideas in his head, and he PowerShells the crap out of them, and it's always inspiring to see what he can do.
That's a pretty impressive looking. I haven't tried it out yet, but looking through the screenshots of kind of what he put in there, it looks pretty impressive.
Yeah. So shout out to him. Another Excel module that I've not used, but I want to play with is an Excel module that lets you create Excel spreadsheets without having Excel installed on your machine. So this is one of these things that's been a bugaboo for me in the past. Is I've got some process running on a machine that doesn't have the Excel client installed on it, and there's no good way to use PowerShell to generate Excel data without Excel installed. But somebody years ago, this is on the Hey Scripting Guy blog, wrote a module that can generate Excel files without Excel installed.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones, right? I looked at for like 5 minutes once, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make CSVs. You open those in Excel just the same way. Shut up.
Yep. And that's what I always do is make CSVs. But I need to look at this. And so I guess one thing we haven't mentioned, all these links that we've been talking about, you can go to toddclint.com/podcast404, and we'll have all the links that you can grab this for those of you that are on the audio version.
And we promise you will not get a not found link. But if you do, that'd be hilarious.
So we probably have time maybe for one more topic. This kind of went long because we have a lot of promotion.
We'll just do O real quick.
All right.
So finally I got back to making Power Apps videos. I've been way behind on making content because I literally work 7 days a week on customer projects. But so I stopped and made a video on using the Power Apps functions: add columns, show columns, rename columns, drop columns, sort by columns. Just a bunch of those type of ones. And so this video was more like, a lot of my videos are kind of like, build a timesheet or build an expense report. This one was just function specific. And the reason for that, though, is it turns out that as you start to work with more complex apps, you want to have multiple data sources. You want to start doing, because I use Azure SQL for most of my data sources, and I have normalized tables, right? So I have a client's table, a project's table, and a customer's table. And, when I create a record, I got to kind of tie sources up. So I end up using a lot of foreign keys. And so you need to use show columns in order to reference the foreign keys and drop downs and things like that. It's all explained there in the video, but just as you guys start to think about Power Apps, you start thinking, how do I go to that next level? How do I start having multiple data sources, foreign keys? How do I start doing calculations of large data sets? Those functions are a big part of that. So I just want to kind of put that out there. And I think it's pretty short video. It's pretty handy though. And it really kind of leads the way to my next one's going to be, is we're going to start talking about how to do joins, right? So, if you've ever been a SQL DBA or had those skills, you know that doing joins is it's a big part of bringing normalized data back together.
And more complicated than I feel like it ever should be. Like I can never just spit one out.
Oh gosh, no, I couldn't write one in 5 minutes if my life depended on it. I need to be like, oh, I got to stop. I got to get an abacus out, and kind of do all this. But anyway, so doing joins in Power Apps is also, it's probably easier, honestly, than doing them in SQL, but it's still pretty complicated. So I'm trying to kind of pave my way to getting into showing people that.
Baby steps. Good to know. All right, so let's move to the community corner a little bit, continuing with our flow stuff for today. One of the things, and I think I just pulled this one out myself, but one of the people I saw posting in Twitter with some stuff was April Dunham. She blogs at SharePointSiren.com. So I was going to take that URL, but she already had it because I think I would make a great SharePoint siren. But she does a lot of things with Flow. She blogs a lot about that. And I think the thing that she blogged about that I liked was she was looking for speakers for the Oklahoma Power Apps and Flow user group.
Oh.
And so you listeners know that Shane and I are very supportive of all of these things. We like user groups and people speaking at user groups and kind of getting their feet wet. So if you do Power Apps or Flow and want to speak at a user group, and I don't know if they can do it remotely, go fill the form out or go to SharePointSiren.com and look. But that is a great way to do that. And this is that time where we talk about the curse of knowledge and all of that, but I don't have anything to offer. Yes, you do. If you're doing anything with Flow or Power Apps, somebody doesn't know how to do it, and they would love to watch you teach them how to do it. So don't talk yourself into thinking you don't have anything to offer.
True story. No, that's a great one. April's a great person, so help her out.
There you go. There you go.
All right, so we'll get into shameless promotion. We got a lot of these folks. It is apparently conference season for Todd and I.
Yes. Shane and I are busy people.
So Power Summit, that's going to be a collection of 7,000 Power Apps, Flow, Power BI, Dynamics people coming together for one big old user conference. That'll be pretty cool. October 15th through 18th in Phoenix. I'm doing about 17 things there because I had to be there all week. So I'm like, you just keep signing me up for things. I will not say no. So I'm emceeing a thing. I think I'm catering lunch one day. You know, I am there. So, and if you sign up before tomorrow, you can still save $100. So get out there and do that.
So am I hearing this right that I'm flying solo in 2 weeks on the 17th?
That's well, it'll depend on what
the internet's like. You look into it.
Yep. So then, speaking of Power Apps and Flow user groups, the Cincinnati chapter is about to spin up. And so that will be October 24th here in Cincinnati, about a mile that way, maybe 2 miles that way. For those of you who can't see, I'm pointing in that direction. Does that help? No, it doesn't.
I know exactly where you're going. The curve's out there. Yep.
Exactly. But that'll be October 24th. And so I'm going to do a brief little session. And then Todd Baginski is going to join us and do a brief little session. So kind of get a lot of Power Apps and Flowy stuff. And then that's all being put on by our dear friend Vivek, who I know from the Power Apps and Flow community. So pretty excited to see that come together.
Oh, is it me already? I sort of nodded off.
Yeah, Todd fell asleep, folks. If you weren't watching a video, you did not see Todd close his eyes when I was talking.
I just so then that Friday, I'm going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, one of Peyton Manning's favorite places. I'll be teaching an in-person workshop on SharePoint on-prem and Office 365 administration. The Dave Peterson, my friend in Omaha, is putting that together, giving me a platform to do that. It is only $50. You can sign up for that. Hang out with me all day in beautiful, sunny Omaha, Nebraska. If you've heard the Bob Seger song, Turn the Page, Interstate 80 and all that, you can go there. It's almost like going to Winslow, Arizona because of the Eagles song. But come hang out with me on Friday, October 26th in Omaha, Nebraska. Would love to talk about Office 365 and SharePoint on-prem administration and do all those fun things.
I don't know why, but as you started to tell that story, it reminded me of the whole Star Trek driving through Iowa and the big old Grand Canyon being in the middle of it. I don't know why, but as you're, talking about Bob Seger, I had visions of you riding off a cliff in Iowa.
So it was funny so I was the reboot of the Star Trek movie. I was talking to somebody about that. I'm like, man, that did not take place in Iowa. That is so ridiculous. When Kirk comes up and there's a big chasm, like I know where Riverside, Iowa is. There's no big chasm there. And I'm going off and the person looks at me and I stop with my pontificating and they just say, not yet. Because that all takes place like 300 years in the future. And I'm like, oh.
Touche. All right. So that's Friday, October 26th. Then Saturday, October 27th, I will be doing SharePoint Saturday Cincinnati. Woohoo!
Yay!
Be doing a session on SharePoint, Power Apps, and Flow. Oh my! And so the idea of my session is I'm going to just talk about the plumbing. So I'm not going to get into building apps as much as here's how you connect Power Apps to Flow. Here's how you connect Flow to SharePoint. Here's how you get data back and forth through the pipes. So that's my goal for that particular session.
That will be good.
Still me?
No. Oh, yes, you. God. Oh.
Shut it. In November, also remember we were going to have the Power Apps and Flow trainings. That is 4 or 5 days of remote Power Apps and Flow training with yours truly. So it'll be an awesome little Power Apps and Flow class. So come join us. If you sign up and you mention the podcast, we'll get you a discount. I do not know what that discount is because I do not have that in the notes, but sign up, take some training with me. Now, Todd, you may talk.
Already. I will be going over to Ljubljana, Slovenia, December 4th and 5th for the Thrive Conference. If you are one of our viewers that is in Europe, that is a great one to go to. It's a small boutique sort of conference. You get a lot of one-on-one time with the instructors and the other attendees and all that. I will be doing there. And then I will also be doing a day-long conference on the 3rd about administration. And my buddy Robbie is going to be joining me for that. So that will be a good time. I've known Robbie for a long time. We have similar views on things. So you can go to thriveconf.com and sign up for that. For those of you that are like myself and don't speak any language but English, the sessions are all in English, so don't worry about that. If you've never been to Slovenia, most Americans don't think about Slovenia, but man, it is awesome. I've been there 3 or 4 times. It's beautiful. And with these small conferences, the conference, the people who put it on, in this case, a wonderful woman named Branka, they go above and beyond to make sure that you have a great time. And especially if you're not from Slovenia, because they really want you to have a great time in their country and love their conference and love their country. It is just an amazing time. So go to thriveconf.com, sign up for that, and I would love to see you in Ljubljana.
Yeah, Slovenia. So that country is... it's interesting, right? 'Cause it's really not one I'm very familiar with because they don't do a bunch of stupid world stage stuff. But GDP, they're in I think last time I looked at the top 10, right? They are a big deal on the world stage who just doesn't have a boisterous person who argues with our president all the time to cause chaos.
Yeah, and they without getting into too much of a history lesson, they were part of the communist countries and part of Yugoslavia, and had a really, really tough time of it when all of that collapsed in the late 80s, early 90s. And Slovenia, they did that thing where they had some really terrible things happen, and they said we're going to build it up, we're going to make it great, and they stuck their nose to the grindstone. And yeah, great economy, high tech economy, very well educated people, high earners. It's really not on our radar. But man, you get over there and it is just an amazing place. So great place to go. Very
cool. Then speaking of the last little promotion here, not maybe so amazing, is Todd is asleep again. I will be at the North American Collaboration Summit, March 14th and 15th. I want you guys to be really excited about that. That is not in Ljubljana, whatever. It's not in Great. Shut up. It is not in Great Britain. It is not in UK or any of that. It is in Branson, Missouri. Oh, yeah.
So we've talked about it before. Branson is great. I have not. I did not submit anything for that one because it's right around the same time as the MVP Summit, and I just didn't know what my feelings on that were about all that travel. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like I will be remiss if I miss out on it, because I've been there before, and it is a great conference. It seems goofy. It's in Branson. Where is Branson even at? I promise if you go, you will not regret it. Mark Rackley puts on a great show. It is, you will love it. So yeah, it's March 14th to 15th, 2019. I might beg Mark and see if he lets me show up and do some stuff.
Well, the good news is, so I had the all-day workshop on Power Apps and Flow, and then just this morning I got approval for another session on Power Apps and Azure SQL. So, I'll be there. They're still approving my sessions. Surely a celebrity like you can get on the invite.
I think Mark Rackley is somehow, and I can't explain it, somehow immune to my charm. I don't know how that works. But I will say I will start the email right now to him so that he can get to denying me right away and save us all a lot of time.
Have your mom call him.
Yes. Yeah. No kidding.
All right. It's 11:54. We should wrap this thing up.
Yep. Thanks everybody in the chat room. I'll be around for a little bit. Shane's got to run. Lori's got to run. But I will be around. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week, and then we'll see about 2 weeks when you're at that conference. We'll see what we can do about getting maybe do some interviews or something. We'll figure something out.
All right. Well, everybody, see you later.
See you next week. All right.
All right. Well, that was a.
Yeah, considering we had 3 things in the notes 20 minutes before we started.
I know. It's good though. I think we, if you like Shane and Todd banter, it was a solid show. If you're looking for hard hitting news, you might be kind of sad, but.
Yeah. No, there was some good stuff in there, and we had the Flow folks in there. That was good too.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm guessing if I go look over in a different spot, that the Flow team, all the Flow people decide to come together and do the shenanigans. They usually, they think as a group, as a collective.
They back channeling on you.
I'm guessing. I'm headed over to look now.
Secret back channel.
Oh, need to do that. I'll probably forget, but I need to.
Nothing. Nothing.
I'm reading now.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, oh, John Liu. And what's funny is I had forgotten, but now that you mentioned that he was like a long time ago listener, I remember chatting with him years ago.
Yeah.
So it's that's funny. I did not remember that I knew him.
It's the same John Liu. Yeah. Yep. He has also progressed with the times, expanded his skill set. Yep. All right. I will let you go. You're busy all afternoon this afternoon?
Calendar. I might be able to sneak in a little time with you late afternoon.
I might ping you. I have a haircut from 3:30 to 4:30 my time, so I might ping you before that. We'll see.
Let me know.
Will do. Go bill some customers, have some lunch. I will chat with you later.
Toodaloo. So I guess I got to stop the stream first.
Probably so.
Let's go over here. Let's say bye, people. Oh, one more.